Monster Hunter Wilds, one of the only games I have ever pre-ordered and have not regretted since. But I want to try and challenge myself to see if I'm good at this game or if I was just simply carried by my palico. The premise for this challenge is essentially a Nuzlocke, but with weapons instead of Pokemon. Now, with that said, let's begin with the rules. Rule 1. No palico or helpers unless it is required or forced. Rule 2. We will not be upgrading our armor, we're going to be really squishy. Rule 3. No decorations or talismans, we will only be using the skills that the armor and weapons provide. Rule 4. I could only use a weapon twice in a row, apart from grinding, because as we all know, grinding is horrible. Rule 5. If I faint, the weapon is no longer usable and I must restart the quest. Rule 6. I could only craft a weapon or armor from a monster, not both. And Rule 7. I could only use a monster to craft a specific weapon. So for example, a Congalala I would only craft its hunting horn. I cannot craft any of its other weapons. With that said, let's begin. Now, our first weapon of choice is the sword and shield. We're starting with the sword and shield as I have used this on majority of my playthroughs and I don't want to have to rely on it as a crutch. So I'm going to be getting rid of it essentially. Now, our first monster that we run into is a Chotacabra. It is an incredibly easy monster. I barely had any difficulty with it. The most difficulty I had was with the constant tutorial and pop-up windows that were interrupting the fight every few minutes or seconds. Great. It even interrupts me when I speak too. The only main issue in this fight is that my Palico Hubert is helping me alongside. Now, I don't remember if I can leave Hubert on standby because I didn't check, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue since Chota is a very easy monster and I don't think Hubert's even using 1% of his power against him. Maybe even 0.1%. Anyway, as this fight's going on, I'm feeling quite confident in myself. Seeing as how Chotacabra is barely doing anything to me, and I'm putting him through the ringer, there's no way I could possibly fail this challenge. It's too easy. The monsters won't hit me as hard, and I'm way too skilled at this game in order to lose. I wonder if there's a type of word for this. It's a form of arrogance, perhaps? It's blanking on me right now. Anyway, with an explosive send-off, we send Chotacabra to Frog or Toad Heaven. After the hunt, we pay our first of many visits to Gemma and begin crafting our first bit of armor. We will be mainly crafting the Chotacabra armor, mainly for its speed eating skill as it should help us heal much faster than normal. Then, after taking Isai back to his village, we pay another visit to Gemma and upgrade a bow, our next weapon of choice. We begin our next hunt with a Quemitress, another fairly easy monster to hunt, but it will give us access to a gun lance that is quite strong. While the hunt is going on, I make sure to grab some bones and ore along the way, to help my future self with the grinding. With the bones I gathered, I am able to make another piece of Chota armor, although I am still missing a sharp fang. I'll get those from the Talioth later. In other news, I've decided to make the Quemitress gun lance mainly for its slightly stronger shells compared to the other gun lances. After that, we have a meal with the Isai's family, and we go on ahead to farm some more Chotacabra and Talioth to make the Chota coil. Once our armor set is complete, we head on to the forest with our next targets, Lalabarina and Congalala. After some mandatory walking sections, Eric gets captured by the Lalabarina, and thus we begin our quest. It's during the fight that I realized it was a good idea to bring the bow along. Since Lala dances everywhere, I would have had a hard time hitting her with any sort of melee weapon. So, thank you, pass me. I do think though that the bow might be a little weak. Maybe since I'm not hitting its weak spots, maybe the bow is underleveled, or maybe I'm just bad. But it feels like I'm shooting plastic straws at a giant monster. And unfortunately, Lalabarina is not a turtle. I do gotta say though, Lalabarina is possibly one of my most favorite bosses ever made by the MH devs. The way it dances around like a literal ballerina, the way how its body forms into a bloody rose and attacks you, it's just amazingly beautiful. Which is why I always feel bad when I knock it into the mud. Being awestruck aside, Lala is not too difficult. I'm able to keep up with her, constantly creating wounds, breaking them, basically keeping her on the ground the entire time. She's not a difficult boss by any means, though she was an incredibly fun boss to beat. Later in the hunt, we encounter Doshiguma as a turf war is started between the two. Thanks to Doshiguma's help, he softens up Lollabrine a bit, allowing us to have the final blow. After taking a small dinner break, we head over to Gemma and make our next weapon, the Lollabrina Dual Blades. I have no other reason for making these other than that they look cool. They're two sides that you could hold. Anyway, after being kidnapped by the Woodwoods, we are then forced to accept their demands as we begin our hunt for the Congalala. I was dreading this fight, not due to its difficulty, but rather the risk of contracting pink eye with all the feces he throws at me. During the hunt, I also make sure to kill the mini Congalas, don't know how to pronounce them, for their materials as I don't quite remember if they were needed for their weapons. There is a moment where Kongala lands a hit on me that takes nearly half my health, and I begin panic chugging potions. The mere thought and shame that I would feel from dying to a feces-throwing hippo ape helps me survive. It's only shortly after that it falls. And with that, we make our final weapon for the day, the Kongala hunting horn. That will be it for this video. If you enjoyed yourself, consider commenting, liking, or subscribing. And with that, I wish you all a goodbye.